What's going on, Orange Nation? Hope everyone had a great weekend. Happy Monday. And this is Neil Adler, the host of Syracuse Central with the latest episode via the Fan Arch Network. Okay, so obviously we're going to do a lot of football this week. Week 0 is over. Did anybody catch that Iowa State Kansas State game in Dublin? That was pretty sloppy, but still cool that they were playing in Dublin. But week 1, the official week 1 starts this Thursday, I believe, is the first set of games. And Syracuse, as we all know, plays number 24 Tennessee in Atlanta, Mercedes-Benz Stadium this Saturday, the 30th of August, noontime, ABC. Syracuse is a 13.5 to 14-point underdog, depending on where you're looking for that kind of information. And just want to go over a couple of my thoughts here. Number one, I fully believe that Syracuse can win this game. And I get it. I'm a homer. I went to Syracuse. I covered the team. Try to be objective. Doesn't always happen, but been covering the team in various places for over a decade. Love my Orange. Not afraid to call them out when things aren't going well. Not afraid to say I think they're going to lose or vice versa. I don't think necessarily Syracuse is going to win this game. I think they can win this game. And here's why. Number one, Fran Brown ain't scared of anyone. Nope. Tennessee comes in, top 25 preseason team, made the CFP last year. Out of the SEC, which we all know is a powerhouse conference along with the Big Ten, just a couple notches above the ACC, Big 12, and others. Fran Brown doesn't care. He doesn't care that the underdog. He doesn't care that they're in the ACC and that's Tennessee's in the SEC. He thinks he can beat everyone. Good for him. So Tennessee has, just like Syracuse and a lot of other teams, based on guys losing eligibility, exhausting eligibility, going to the pros, transfer portal, etc., new prep recruit classes. The Vols have a made-over roster. They've seen some of their key pieces, including their quarterback from last year, move on. They're going to have a stout defense again, but their offense, I'm sure their offensive line is going to be good, and I'm sure they'll have solid pieces at, receiver, running back, etc. They've got Joey Aguilar, the quarterback from UCLA by way of Appalachian State. He's talented. He's thrown a lot of picks. He did last year. I think he led FBS, but he's a good player. I think Syracuse, a couple of things that I think are concerning or areas to monitor. And let me know what you think. And also let me know in the comments if you think Syracuse is going to win this game. I think Syracuse, the offensive line, which has been completely made over, that's an area that I'll be watching given that Tennessee has a stout defense. So can that offensive line hold up in terms of making sure that quarterback Steve Angeli is not getting pressured too much, not getting sacked, hopefully at all? How are they doing in the run game with presumably Yassine Willis starting, but Will Nixon also getting playing time? I think that Syracuse, their defensive line, obviously they lost Fidel Diggs, the edge rusher, is in the pros now. And their defensive line, I'm not going to say it's a question mark because they've got a lot of veteran guys on the defensive line, whether you're talking tackles or on the edge. But some of them are unproven in terms of being starters. So it's a veteran group. We'll see how it holds up. I think that Syracuse in the secondary can hold its own against Tennessee's offense. But they do have some young players in the defensive back kind of position group as well. So I guess the bottom line here is I feel like Syracuse, if the offensive line can hold up, they can create some turnovers, get some short fields, score early because Tennessee will presumably have a larger portion of its fan base there. Knoxville's a lot closer to Atlanta than Central New York. But get a score early and just not be playing from behind the whole game. I don't know. Putting aside the fact that Syracuse is my alma mater, I feel like Syracuse will be in this game. I'm not saying they're going to win, but I don't necessarily think they're going to lose by 2 touchdowns, which is roughly the spread right now. And it's an opportunity, as John Waldhack, the athletics director, has said a couple times recently, and Fran Brown said as well. It's an opportunity for Syracuse to play in week 1 on a national stage. Yes, they're playing opposite Texas, Ohio State at noon, but it's on ABC. It's a fun non-conference game. 2 orange-clad schools, 2 schools that won 10 games last year and have hopes of doing so again this year. So we'll see. We'll see how it all goes. Obviously, I have more coverage throughout this week and after post-game on Syracuse Central, but I think Syracuse has a shot here, and I hope they are competitive, and we'll see how it goes. So moving on, I'm going to talk here about, and again, in the comments section, please drop me a line and let me know what you think. What I think Syracuse's record will be, could be in 2025. It's tough. They have, on paper, they have a really tough schedule. It's been well documented between Tennessee and then going to at Notre Dame in the non-conference, and then the top 4 teams in the ACC preseason media poll. Syracuse plays all 4 of them, and all on the road. And then they've got their home slate, and then they've got 2 other non-conference games at home, UConn and Colgate. I think Syracuse could go anywhere from 5-7 to 9-3. I don't necessarily think Syracuse is going to win 10 games in the regular season. If they did, Wild Heck better hook up Fran Brown with a lifetime extension, because he's going to get all kinds of offers after this year. If he navigates that schedule and goes 10-2, look out. So I don't think that'll happen, but could they get to 9? Sure. Could they only win 5? Sure. Do I think they'll go lower than 5? No. And I personally feel like they're going to go 8-4, 7-5. That means that they're going to have to pretty much win out at home. And their home games, again, non-conference, Colgate, UConn. And then the 4 ACC games are Duke, which won 9 games last year, North Carolina and Bill Belichick, Boston College, which beat Syracuse on the Syracuse was on the road last year, so it was at home for the Eagles. But Boston College and Pitt, which throttled Syracuse last year. So those are the home games. I don't think those are cakewalks. And if you're looking for Syracuse to get to 7-8 wins, they're going to have to win those. And then the road at SMU, at Clemson, at Miami, at Georgia Tech. I think Syracuse could pick off 1 or 2 of those road games, or maybe one of the 2 non-conference tough games, Tennessee in the opener or Notre Dame. It's just, all this is conjecture and speculation, and it's, these teams are this on paper and that on paper, and Syracuse isn't as good on paper. That's why the games are played on the field. Like I said, I'm looking at 7-5 or 8-4. But tell me what you think. I'm really curious what you think. So we're going to move from there to the roster strength and weaknesses. Now, I got into this a little bit when I was rambling on in the first segment about Syracuse versus Tennessee, but Syracuse's roster is pretty interesting this year. So we'll start at quarterback. Is Steve Angeli a strength or a weakness? Who knows? He's never taken an official snap at Syracuse, and he hasn't taken a lot of snaps in college. He transferred from Notre Dame. When he got thrust into action in a CFP semifinal against Penn State, I've talked about this, he led Notre Dame on a drive down the field near the end of the half to get a field goal, and that made the game 10-3. Notre Dame was still losing to the Nittany Lions, but Notre Dame would end up going on and winning by 3 points. So that was a key drive while Riley Leonard was in concussion protocol. So Angeli, he's a 4-star prep recruit. He was a high 3-star top 25 quarterback out of the portal. He won the quarterback competition over Ricky Collins. It was very close, according to Fran Brown. But is Angeli going to be a strength or a weakness? I have no idea. I think he's going to be solid. I don't think he necessarily is going to throw for 4,700 yards like Kyle McCord did last year. But I think he could be a good player. We'll see. So that's TBD. I think the running backs, even though LaQuint Allen on his own rushed for more than 1,000 yards and over 500 yards through the air as a receiver, I don't think either of the 2 main running backs are going to replicate that on their own. But I think as a tandem, if Yassine Willis, the sophomore, and Will Nixon, the redshirt senior, stay healthy, knock on wood, knock on wood, knock on wood. If they stay healthy, I think they'll be a strength of this team. Now, certainly part of that depends on how the offensive line holds up, but I think those are 2 solid running backs that could absolutely combined go over 1,000 yards on the ground. I don't know how many reps one is going to get versus the other for right now, but I think it's a strength. Tight end, Dan Villari, the redshirt senior, the fan favorite, the former Michigan quarterback. He's trying to replace Orlando Gatson, the second, who was an All-American. So I'm not saying he's going to do Gatson like numbers, but I think he could be a strength in terms of blocking, in terms of receiving, just in terms of being a really good teammate and a solid contributor. I think he could be a strength. Not necessarily the same type of production as Gatson, but we'll see. The wide receiver room, yes, they lost Trevor Pena to Penn State, Jackson Meeks to the pros, but those are two of the headliners. But I think the wide receiver room for Syracuse is going to be an absolute strength. You've got Darryl Gill, the junior, who I believe it has the most production from any player coming back that was on Syracuse's roster last year. So Gill, you got Justin Ross Simmons, Jonte Cook, the transfer from Washington from Texas by way of Washington. He didn't actually play at Washington, but he had transfer there, but didn't end up in the field. He's a former 5-star prep recruit. Those three guys could be starters. But then you've also got Tyshawn Russell, the transfer from South Carolina, Omari Hatcher, who's really good at getting long balls down the field, and two redshirt freshmen, Emmanuel Ross and Jalen Hornsby. That is a stacked wide receiver room. Now, I mentioned this earlier, so I'm not going to get a lot into it right now, but the offensive line to me is TBD. I'm not convinced it's going to be a strength, but I'm also not convinced it's going to be a weakness. It's just completely made over. We don't know. They've got a lot of depth there, who the starters will be and who, I think the center, Austin Collins, the redshirt senior, is pretty well set in stone, but who's going to be the different guards and the two tackles? I think that could be flipped around and guys could play multiple positions. On the defensive side, the defensive line, like I said earlier, a little bit, it's a veteran group with a lot of seniors and redshirt seniors, but not a lot of them played a ton of time last year. So they're thrust into larger roles, and so it's TBD, but the defensive line, in my opinion, last year was not a strength. They did not do well, especially against the run. Fidel Diggs was a great edge rusher, but otherwise didn't impress me a lot. Not disrespecting anyone, but just being honest, the position group as a whole. So I don't know about the defensive line. I hope it'll be a strength, but I'm not convinced. So it could be more on the, I hate to use the word weakness, but the concerning side, the area to monitor side. So we'll just leave it at that. Linebackers, likely Derek McDonald, the redshirt senior, has been around a long time. He's going to be a starter, likely alongside Gary Bryant III, who's a redshirt junior transfer. Anwar Sparrow will probably get a lot of reps, and there's other guys as well. But I think McDonald could be an all-ACC caliber player. Linebackers, will it be a position of strength? Again, that remains to be seen, but I don't, again, see it to be a huge weakness either. I think McDonald will be solid. So from the defensive backs, the secondary standpoint, the safeties, Deuce Chestnut, Devin Grant, and then also Barry Buxton, absolutely a position of strength. The cornerbacks, not so sure. Not because they're not talented, but they're very young. You've got true freshman, 17-year-old Demetrius Samuel Jr., sophomore Davian Kerr, and redshirt sophomore Chris Peel, who transferred in. So they're just young. And then other guys on the team are at the cornerback spot have talent and promise, but they're young too. So from a secondary standpoint, I think the safeties will be a position of strength. Cornerbacks, we'll see. Special teams, just going to start. I'm going to mention Malachi James, kickoff, punt returner. Other guys could be involved too. He's certainly super fast, and I think he could be a strength for the team. But then from the kicking and punting standpoint, Jack Stonehouse is, over the last 2 years, has at least been an all-ACC honorable mention punter. And 1 year, I believe he was all-ACC third team, and he's on the preseason all-ACC team ahead of 2025. So Jack Stonehouse, the punter, is a strength for this team. The kicking team position group last year was not good. I hope it's better. And you've got Trip Woody and you've got Jaden O. I don't know who the starters could be. The starter will be. It could be a tandem duo in terms of long kicks versus short kicks. I'm concerned it won't be a position of strength like last year, but I hope I'm wrong. So overall, I think there's a lot of intriguing units. The trenches on both sides of the line are definitely areas to monitor, along with the kicking game. and that young cornerback unit. But there's a lot of talent on this roster. A lot of talent. Just see how it all comes together. That's the key. That's the key. All right, so we're gonna finish up here with a little recruiting thing. So in recent episodes, I've talked about Calvin Russell a decent amount. He's a 5-star wide receiver with Miami Northwestern Senior High School. He verbally committed to Syracuse football in early July. At that time, I was told by a source that he also will play for Syracuse basketball at least this first year. He has said multiple times that he is locked in with Syracuse regardless of who else is pursuing him, and that he is going to sign during the early signing period in December, and he could enroll in January from what I'm hearing. But yet I keep seeing these freaking articles, excuse my language, although I guess freaking is not really a bad word. I keep seeing these articles from recruiting analysts, and they're just doing their job. I'm not, but talking about how Calvin Russell is like a flip candidate. And I get it. He's a top 25 national prospect. Max Prep says he's the number 2 overall wide receiver in all of high school football this year, regardless of class. And he picked Syracuse primarily because of his relationship and his family's relationship with Fran Brown. But it's Syracuse. Syracuse isn't a blue blood in football right now. And some of the other schools he's looking at are. And he also has suitors continuing to push for him from Florida, and he's from Florida. So I get it. So he's on flip watch, according to some analysts. And one of the recent articles I came across is that Michigan, who was thought to be in his final 2 with Syracuse, Miami, which is a hometown team, and Florida State, which is an in-state team, are continuing to push for Russell. And I did come across an article that said that he is going to be at the Miami Notre Dame game in week 1. And then there was some chatter, oh, well, if, Miami beats Notre Dame and has a great season, then Russell will probably flip. But what happens if Syracuse has a great year? And maybe, if Syracuse legs an egg and goes, 2-10, then maybe Calvin rethinks things. But he also is committed to Syracuse primarily because of his relationship with Fran Brown. And unless Fran Brown leaves, I don't think he's flipping. And it's like there's this notion out there that he's got to flip or he's likely to flip because he's committed to Syracuse. If he was committed to Ohio State or Alabama, Texas, whoever, like a blue blood, would people be saying, he's locked in? I don't know. Maybe I'm just overthinking it. But I'm seeing over and over again, it's been just under 2 months since he verbally committed to Syracuse, and I've seen at least a half dozen articles from recruiting analysts talking about how Calvin Russell is a flip candidate. And I feel like it's primarily because he committed to Syracuse. It is what it is. Like I said, I think if Syracuse has a solid year and Fran Brown is assumably the head coach next in 2026, that while other suitors may continue to try and flip Calvin Russell, he's locked in with Syracuse football and Syracuse basketball. That's my take. I'll continue to follow Calvin's recruitment and how he's doing in his senior year at Miami Northwestern. All right, so drop me some comments. Let me know what you think about the show, pluses, minuses, what you want me to talk about, not talk about. Give me your thoughts on Syracuse's opening game in football, as well as their season record for 2025. And I appreciate you tuning in. This is Neil Adler with Syracuse Central on the Fan Arch Network. I hope you have a great Monday. I'll talk to you again tomorrow. Thanks for tuning in again, and take care.